Now, for the culmination of everything I have done with the tutorial series, starting with One Night Ultimate Werewolf, going through the Daybreak, the mark system inside of Vampires, to the randomization inside of Ultimate Alien, to the extra bonus rolls that allow for greater variability and replay value. This is the culmination of head to head to head. It is time. Inside of Epic Battles, 3 or 4 teams are going to be going against each other inside of One Night Ultimate. But the first thing that I got to explain to you first is the objectives of the respective teams, because they're going to drastically shift now that there are multiple teams to face off against. These tokens right here are the vote tokens, and they generally exist since One Night Ultimate Vampire introduced the idea of epic battles. And One Night Ultimate Alien also has its own set of tokens too. But what these tokens are for is they are to indicate the important voting change that exists inside of epic battles. Because of the fact that inside of epic battles, when it comes to the voting system, the rules still apply, but 2 people are guaranteed to die. By far the largest roster inside of the One Night Ultimate series, and especially going into epic battles, you have your selection inside of the village team. The village team, their only goal is to simply kill 2 players that don't belong on the same team. It can't be 2 werewolves, it can't be 2 vampires, it can't be 2 aliens. It has to be 2 of each different kind. This includes the independent roles as well. So as long as it's not like and like that are both dying, the village team is still guaranteed to win, regardless on the amount of villagers who die or how the rest of the voting shakes out. With everything active, this is the werewolf team. The squire, the minion, werewolves, alpha wolf, dream wolf, and mystic wolf. Inside of the confines of epic battles, there are 2 things that need to happen in order for the werewolf team to win. First thing that needs to happen is that all the wolves have to survive. The thing that has to happen in order for the werewolf team to win is that all the wolves have to survive, and the werewolves have to either kill either an alien or a vampire. If they could satisfy both of those conditions, they win. Is the vampire team. The vampire team hasn't changed, no roster booths or growth. This is just how the team plays out. And here's how it works for them. The first thing that needs to happen for the vampires is that all of the vampires need to survive. The master, the count, and the vampire, as Renfield himself is not a vampire. The second thing that needs to happen is that the vampires need to survive, and they either need to kill either a werewolf or an alien in order for them to win. This is the alien team. Of course, taking into account the intermittent of Zerb and Groob depending on how you stack your roster, the alien team just has one goal. Keep their own team alive, which includes Body Snatcher, both aliens, either Zerb or Groob, and they either have to kill a werewolf or a vampire in order to satisfy their ability to potentially win inside of an epic battle. All of the independent roles inside of the One Night Ultimate series remain the exact same. In addition to the Tanner's own victory condition of trying to die, the other important thing about the Tanner here is the fact that he guarantees that the werewolf team cannot win if he dies. However, there are always chances to other teams to take advantage of this fact. The death of the synthetic alien ensures that neither the village team nor the alien team can win. But it is still possible for the werewolves or the vampires to take advantage of the synthetic alien's death to satisfy their conditions, just so long as their teams haven't lost their members as well. The biggest difference that we'll have to be sure about when you are playing epic battles is that there is a difference in the roles being on the same team as another role versus becoming that actual role. Whenever the Nostradamus is looking at cards, he is on the same team as the card that he puts into the app. But the Nostradamus himself is not that role. The Nostradamus being a part of the werewolf team does not mean the werewolves will lose if the Nostradamus dies. Or if he is on the vampire team, that the vampires will lose, or the aliens, or any of the independent teams, or the village team, so on and so forth. He is still the Nostradamus. Paranormal investigator, however, becomes the role that isn't on the village team. So, if the paranormal investigator sees a werewolf, he's not only on their team and shares the same win condition, but he himself also becomes a werewolf. If he sees the tanner, he becomes a tanner. If he sees a vampire, he becomes a vampire. Therefore, if the paranormal investigator dies at this point, whatever team he saw that he not only joined will cost that team their potential victory condition. Taking into account everything, you're going to go through the phases as such. You're going to go through the dusk phase inside of One Eye Ultimate Vampire all the way through, ending as the very last thing of looking at your marks and resolving the lover's step if Cupid is in the game. You are then going to go from that point all the way through the night phase, from the very beginning of the earliest character all the way to the very end, including any potential randoms that happen inside of One Eye Ultimate Alien. Once this is all done, then the same discussion is going to be happening inside of who is what role and what have you, and making that decision, but now your decision now changes because of the fact of what role you originally start with, what teams you want to start building alliances with and voting towards. How are you going to be able to find out who is or who isn't on your team? Things of that nature. But the way that it works is that everything plays out the same. You give a greater amount of time to give all the teams the ability to decide who is on their team and who exactly they're going to be voting for in order to try to satisfy their condition. But here's how it works. After all the players have decided on the count of 3 who they're pointing at and voting, you're going to take the first most votes token and place it on top of their card. Then you will do the same for the person with the second highest votes. For those characters who have the first highest amount of votes and the second highest votes are both going to reveal their cards at the same time in order for you to run through the list of who exactly won this epic battle. This example here, let's say that this was the vote that occurred for the game. Here's how you would run through the checklist. Starting up top, we see that the pickpocket is on the village team. It's not really an issue if a village team role dies, it's just what happened. It was one that people framed to be the most suspicious. The next thing that happened was that an alien was the second highest voted player in the game. So, here's how we run through it. Because a pickpocket died, and that it wasn't anybody from 2 other different teams, the village team is automatically lost inside of this scenario of epic battles. Because remember, the village team can go after either a werewolf, vampire, alien, or independent role in any combination of 2 in order to meet their condition. But because they didn't, they failed. Because this alien had the second highest amount of votes, then the alien team also lost this match because they had failed to keep their own alien teammates alive in order to win. So their condition is automatically knocked out from contention of winning. Position-wise, the mortician was sitting directly next to the alien, so the mortician satisfied his independent objective. So the only teams left to have won inside of this particular epic battle would be the vampires, the werewolves, and the mortician only are the only teams will have won this epic battle because they have satisfied all of their win conditions. Also, 2 more additional tokens in order to satisfy ties that exist inside of epic battles. Because players who are tied will also die in addition to the players who have the single most highest votes and the second most highest votes, in which you run through that checklist all over again in order to decide what single team or individual teams won as a collective. This is everything that you need to know about One Night Ultimate epic battles. If you ever run into any particular situations in an epic battle or have any questions about a particular character's role, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I will gladly answer any questions that you have. But honestly, epic battles are wild, they're crazy. You have to think very differently in comparison to how you would inside of a regular One Night Ultimate game. To where, if you're just a villager, you don't have to think about not just who else is a villager, but who is a vampire, who is an alien, who is a part of an independent role team, and how can we as villagers, with the information that we have, be able to sway the voting to satisfy our condition. Because as long as we have 2 different teams that aren't the village team getting killed off, we win. Werewolves have to think, how can we keep our own werewolves alive while also framing everybody else? How do we keep our vampires alive while framing anybody else? How do we keep our aliens alive and frame everybody else? The independent roles have to find ways to sneak in and create alliances and factions because that is more prominent in an epic battle in comparison, because the minority teams can win alongside each other if they satisfy their conditions. So I would definitely encourage to almost double the average time that it takes, because there's so much more to think about aside from the roles. All of the alignments and what roles are on the same team versus becoming a role and things like that are now playing a role in the decision that you make, especially if you have village roles that sway voting and things of that nature, to where now you really have to come to a decision of, how am I voting this time? And are we going to be able to satisfy our condition? If we have any ties, what's the big play here? Even as a minority team, it's not that easy to bluff anymore, to where, yes, you could hide the fact that you're a vampire. But now, you have to be like, okay, I'm not a vampire, but am I another alien? Am I an independent role? Am I a werewolf? Am I a villager? And if I get caught in that lie, who all is going to benefit from it? Who all is going to support that lie and is going to be able to team up? It's so different from anything else inside of the One Night Ultimate series. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.